Hello and welcome to a new project for me, another series of videos building up a diorama. This time I wanted to do something set in World War II, somewhere on the Eastern Front. I wanted to learn a few new techniques involving snow and ice and water effects, so I decided to build up a bit of a winter scene, a cold scene, as I mentioned, somewhere on the Eastern Front. So I'm going to incorporate some snow, some ice effects, some running river water. I'm going to build up a foam stone bridge, something I haven't done before either, using some foam boards, and the use of an old Panzer IV from an old diorama I've dismantled. It needs a lot of TLC, still quite dusty, a bit of work needs doing to it, but basically I just want to jazz it up, put a few new techniques onto that, and also give it a whitewash finish so it blends in with the snow effect. All this I've bought to fit into a purpose-built case I've picked up off from eBay. It measures approximately 12 inches by 9 by 9. I've built something in another case similar before, as you can see here. This one is set in Jersey. It was a former ammunition dump, where they used to keep a lot of equipment, and then it converted into a hospital in 43. I've got a video up on YouTube already how I put this one together, where I'll leave a link at the bottom of the notes of this video if you want to have a look. So that's the basic plan, and now I'm going to show you how I decided what figures to use and how I was going to set up the scene. So the kits I will be using for this one, I'll start with German soldiers from Mini Art, winter 41 and 42, the numbers 35218. The sense of this story, when I saw this fire and these five guys here, gave me the idea for the story. I'll probably just be using 3 of the 5, probably not these 2, I'll make up these 3. This guy, although he looks like he's going to be heating up some food on the fire, will actually be fishing, and that's going to be that's what the story of this diorama will be based on. I'll explain a bit more about that later. So that's the first figure set, using these 3 of the 5. I'm also got Verlinden's German tankers dressing for the cold, number 2107. That one is pretty useful, obviously, because I've got the Panzer IV. And they're in, like it says, they're in winter dress, winter overalls, so that'll suit the scene again well with the cold. Another one from Verlinden, 1605, just called Cold. Finally, I got Stalingrad's Russian soldier rather, that's S3055, and he's because of the campfire, he's warming his hands, sitting on a box, so that should look quite nice. The one that I don't have is this one, the 2 Russian peasant children. That's not available in the UK at the moment, so until I get hold of that one, that's the only figure set that I have to add. Right, in terms of products, I've got some dried grass, some clumps of grass rather from Greenline in various lengths. That's going to be involved. I've also bought some of AK's dried seagrass. I've never used this before, just thought it looked quite nice on the web, so try some of that, see how that comes out. I've got AK's snow sprinkles and their micro balloons. Again, never use these products, but they do look good in the reference books, so I'll be trying some of that. AK still water for the water effects. Again, never used this, but looking forward to trying it out. This stuff I have used before in Envirotex Light. That'll be used for the main bulk of the water. I used it on my previous dio on the World War I, and it's great stuff. Sets really well, nice and clear. You can add acrylics to it to colour it. So that'll be used as the main bulk, and then the still water and the bits and pieces to give the effects. I also had an old tub, this is about 10 years old, snowflakes from Woodland Scenics, which I'll also use up. This was about £10, which was really decent, as opposed to the snow sprinkles were about £6, £7, £8. So £8, £10, big difference. So I can use that up a lot. And the book that I'll be using to reference all these products is this one from AK as well. They're dioramas, water, ice and snow. and it's a fantastic book. It's got some really great reference photos, obviously advertising their own products, but it gives you an idea of how to put things together, starting from scratch. I really recommend it, especially if you want to do like a winter scene that I'm working similar to what I'm working on. So that'll give me a lot of techniques and advice throughout this project. Okay, so what I've done now, I've created an initial template. I'm just using some cheap cardboard from some boxes. I find if I use this first, it can give me some dimensions and give me an idea of the shapes and what's going to go where and the sizes, especially since it's going to fit into the display case. The dimensions are quite tight. So this will be the river running through here, running under the bridge and along here. The German soldiers warming themselves next to the campfire will be on the bank here with the fishermen. This will be quite a steep slope running down from the roads down to the riverbank, with a path leading up. On the bridge itself, which will be made out of the foam board, I'll have the two children waving down at the soldiers below, hence the idea of asking them for a fish. So now I'm happy with how that layout's going to be, and then the next thing will be to start using the foam boards and the plastic proper to build up the structure. Okay, so I've put most of the figures together now. I've left a few heads off because they'll be easier to paint. But basically it's to give you a better idea of the scenario. We've got the campfire here. Imagine this penny is the fire. The guys warming themselves up. This is the Russian soldier with his German guards, and the two of them are looking up at the two cocktail sticks on the bridge, which will be the children. So there's a bit of interaction between those figures. The second Verlinden soldier is walking across the bridge, but he'll be looking at the children, not looking very happy. This is one of the mini art soldiers, the guy who was heating up his food on the fire, but instead I've left the saucepan out, and he's going to be holding his fishing rods, which will be going out into the water. And the other set from Verlinden, the two German tankers, although I've put them, that's roughly where they'll be, but they'll obviously be higher up. They'll be up on the road, but that's roughly the location they'll be. One thing I have noticed is, although there are obviously three different companies, you've got the Verlinden guys, Stalingrad Miniatures and Mini Art, is the size difference. Obviously all 135 scale, but for example the size difference between this guy and this one is quite a bit of a difference. Obviously some people are bigger than others, but compared to like the Mini Art is quite a big difference. Obviously some people are bigger than others. I suppose this could be a boy soldier and this is just a very tall man, but it is quite noticeable, as you can see, considering they're supposed to be the same scale. But that's fine. I've had that problem before in previous dios when you mix and match different companies, but like I mentioned, some people are bigger than others. The other thing I did just change as well on the Stalingrad figure, I changed his head. The head that he comes with is a happy one. He's smiling, laughing, obviously because he's with his comrades. But this guy has just been captured, so he needs to look a bit more. There you go. He needs to look a bit more miserable and worried. So he's got a hornet head and just put another hat on him. Changed the hat from the spare box, so he looks the part. So that's it for now, and now I can crack on. after that little montage, this is what I'm up to now. The grassy bank and the river bank have all had their weeds, grasses, shrubs, little bits and pieces added, and that's now ready for an airbrushing, as well as the riverbed itself. That's to be airbrushed. I've plastered the road on the top to bring it all flush to the card at the back, and then just gave that a coat of paint just to start it off, as well as the river bank here. One thing I did overlook is when I put the figures onto dowels and the boxes as such, I should have really first plastered this, got it all ready with the gravel, and then I could have embedded the figures and the boxes into the plaster so they have somewhere to sit once they've been painted. But obviously I can't do that now that the dowel is attached to them, so I have to paint them first, and then I can concentrate on plastering this. For the road itself, what I'm going to use is Vallejo stick mud. It's a really nice product. I used it quite a lot on the Passchendaele Battlefield Dio I just made previous to this one. I really recommend it. It looks like mud when it's dry. It looks like mud now, and it's got loads of little bits of sand and grit and dirt in there, and this tub will go a long way, so that's good stuff to use. You've probably also noticed the hole here, and the reason for that is I've just got a simple tea light, but it's one that flickers. The campfire where the soldiers will be standing around will be set up on here. This will blend in, hopefully then, into the surrounding area, and then because it needs to be turned on and off, that will just sit such in there. The campfire's on there, and it'll give it a nice little effect. So that's the reason for that. And the figures now, they're in the display case, and they're all ready to start painting. Obviously the first ones I'll do will be the ones that will be sitting around the fire, so I can crack on with that area. So the next job now is to start cracking on with the bridge. I've got the blue styrofoam that I'm going to use to create it, using the template, the basic cardboard template for that. And the idea pretty much is it's going to be something like that, but obviously a little bit bigger. The bridge is going to come out to here to go flush with the sides. So I'm going to use the blue styrofoam to cut out and then scribe all the brickwork into that and the stonework into that. So it's going to take a little while, but hopefully once it's all done it should look quite nice. Then once that's done, I can then start airbrushing the riverbed, a medium colour brown, and then add a little bit of green to start working on the sides where the riverbank starts, and then add maybe a little bit more lighter brown there, so I've got a little colour variation, but something to tie it all in. Some of these grasses are a little bit light considering it's a winter dio, so they need to be toned down a little bit. So that's that. I'll also might airbrush some of this bank again because it is quite green, it looks quite nice, but again, to bring it all together, tie it all in, maybe give it a khaki brown, light brown, to give a bit of a dull winter look, and then I can add a few more pieces of grass, a few more shrubs to give it a bit of colour. But obviously eventually all this is going to be covered in a layer of snow, as is everything pretty much. So all that work maybe a little bit, maybe not so much wasted, but it won't be seen because it'll be covered in a covering of snow. So that's pretty much where I am now. One product that I can recommend, which I've just started using, is this stuff, dried seagrass by AK. Haven't used it before, I just thought I'd give it a try, just seen it on this website I use quite a lot, scalemodelshop.co.uk. It comes like that, which looks a bit strange, but then all you have to do is just get a pair of tweezers and you can tease off pieces of the stuff at a time. The colour's quite nice already, but obviously it can be airbrushed or add some filters to it, and then just apply it straight onto the dio. It only works out, it's about £4 or £5 a box, and you can probably get hundreds of little grass tufts out of it, so that's pretty decent stuff, so I recommend that. So now on to the next job, which like I mentioned would be we'll be now starting building this bridge. So the first thing I did was do a little bit of research and get some ideas from the internet about some stone bridges and the sort of thing I wanted to try and recreate, and then I could start measuring up the angles especially, and cutting the foam so it would fit to size, obviously test fitting all the time to make sure again that everything was in place and how I wanted it. And these were the 4 pieces I had left I needed now to construct the bridge. Firstly, using a little bit of super glue on a test piece to make sure that the foam didn't melt, but it was fine. I had to cut away some of the riverbank because of the angles, but at least I could add some more water to that pit later. And using a pencil, I practiced first and then started drawing onto the foam board. And these were the 3 pieces once they had the initial scribing on drawing that with the stonework. Then using a scalpel and a carving tool, I could start carving out the stones individually, and using a stone from outside, just pressing into the foam so that it had a little bit of texture and it came out quite nicely. And again, going over each stone individually to give it some more weathering. The thinner piece of foam, once the scribing had been done, made it easier to fold over, to curve rather. And this was the 3 pieces that I'd left ready to start construction. I added the first piece first and glued it in place, and then everything else came together pretty well. Didn't really have any fitting issues in the end. All the measurements came out right. Not sure if I'm really happy about this piece here, but the cobblestones on the top came out well, so all in all I'm really pleased. Okay, so this is where we are now, now that the bridge is in place and all glued. First thing I could do was redo the side of the riverbank that since I had to cut away. Since the bridge went back a little bit further than I expected, it allows now at least for more room for the water to flow underneath the bridge. I lost a little bit of space unfortunately here, more than I expected, because of the riverbank coming out a bit further. So at least that makes up for the water under here. I can start playing with some of the water effects once I start adding the water. So the riverbank and the riverbed has all been airbrushed now with some various browns and greens. I've taken away some of the starkness of that light green grass. It all blends in a little bit better now, and I can start painting some of the stones and the twigs, branches that are sit onto the riverbed. Start adding a little bit more detail. I also gave the grass bank a quick airbrush just in a light brown colour, so that again all blends in, and I can start adding some grass tufts and some shrubs to it. For some of the shrubs I'm going to use this, which is sea foam. Just pick out little bits at a time, and it can be applied straight onto there if necessary, airbrushed if needed. But what I'll do is using a hairspray as an adhesive, add a little bit of dried mint leaves onto that, sprinkle them on, and then that'll sit on there, give it a bit more depth. And again, since the airbrush was out, I also airbrushed the bridge. It's not going to be this colour, it's going to be more of a light grey colour with some various tones and weathering. Add some moss and some ivy, bits and pieces. But at least that takes away the starkness of the bright blue foam at the moment, so it all blends in a little bit better. So the next job is to paint these guys and their boxes that they'll be sitting on the riverbank. When they're all painted, I can take them off the dowels and embed them into the wet plaster, so I've got a place for them all to go, and then I can finish off the plaster with some gravel, grass, bits and pieces, and then they've got a place to go, and that'll all be sorted out. Like I mentioned, add some more shrubs and grass tufts to the grass bank, and then give this all a spray. This is brown at the moment, but this will be a bit of a lighter colour, as in here, as in what will be on the majority of this the riverbank. And again, the rocks need some light tones and a little bit of weathering as well. So that's all to do. So if you want to have some updates on how I'm getting on between the 2 videos, you can go to my Instagram. And that's got some progress photos, maybe some videos, so you can see how I'm getting on until the next video. Apart from that, I'd just like to say thanks for watching, thanks to all the subscribers. Slowly creeping up to 1,000 now, which is really appreciated, it's really nice, and I'll see you in part 2.